Welcome back to another edition of Extreme Voltage. That's it, 2023 in the books. The Chargers, your LA Chargers, fall to 5-12 in this 2023 season. Extremely disappointing. We're going to break it all down. We're going to break down the downfall of the LA Chargers. We're going to get into what transpired and what occurred with the coaching changes, the downfall of the offense, the defense, you name it. It was a complete crap show at the end. Staley lost his team. We saw it unfold against those Las Vegas Raiders. That was just a complete quit, unfortunately, on this team. That was just that was a team that no longer had leadership in that locker room. That's what it looks like, at least in my eyes. That was just a terrible game. Let's go back to that one. You know what? Let's start with that. I mean, that was it, right? The week prior, I believe, was that Denver Bronco game. I want to just go back, just flash back for a quick second. I was at that Bronco game, sitting in my seat, putting my binoculars on, and just watching this team come out in the first quarter. And offensively, they were flat. They just did not have a spark. They didn't look good. And, of course, the injury happens to Herbie. And he got knocked out of that game on a fourth down. Another fourth down call for Staley that went for it, which could have easily been a field goal attempt. Nope, not with Staley's team. He's going to go for it every fourth down, it seems like. And sure enough, that was the injury factor. Then Herbie was out for the season with that hand injury. And that team already coming out, though, looked flat to me. And it looked like the message was no longer being received. And, for years and years, I've heard this in coaching, no matter how great your coach can be. I'm not saying Staley was great. He was far from it. But regardless, I remember Marty Schottenheimer was speaking about this once. No matter how strong the coaching is in that locker room, right? After a while, it becomes white noise. Players no longer receive the message. It's not the same. We can even flash forward now to our recent news with Bill Belichick being removed, Pete Carroll being removed, right, from their head coaching positions for the Patriots and Seahawks. These are great quality coaches, right, that were no longer have jobs. They didn't just wake up and forgot how to coach. What transpires is the fact that potentially the teams have to move on. The message might not be there anymore, being served the way it is. A new messenger has to come out. So just to backtrack on that, Staley, nowhere near the quality of coach that we're talking about. However, I know I like this guy coming in. I thought really this year, especially if you heard my podcast earlier, I thought the Chargers had built something and were really striving for some great postseason success, especially coming on the heels of a terrible downfall of a playoff game against the Jacksonville Jaguars of January of last year to culminate that 2022 season. And the way that led 27-zip and came back and just got rocked, that was a heartbreaker of a loss. And I thought good teams will bounce back and will learn from these kind of issues and become stronger for it, you name it. Add the pieces you needed to add. Keep going with free agency. Get a good draft class, right? Didn't transpire. Didn't happen. The injuries came. Even before the injuries, the lack of execution. And I also blame Kellen Moore on this. He's not. He's one of the guys here in this one that's not gonna get away without getting scolded on this one. I tell you, that offense, man, that offensive line, which we thought was really going to be a strength of this Chargers team, really faltered. And I'm going to tell you exactly what we talked about in the past. That faltered in the 2-minute offense. We saw it against the Miami Dolphins, and it kept rearing its ugly head almost every game. Because we were so close every game, the Dallas Cowboys game, the Detroit Lions game, the Tennessee Titans game, every game you could imagine when Herbie was healthy, this team had a chance. And not just a slight chance, but a strong chance to win the game with the ball in their hands with under 2 minutes left to go. We have the ball. That's how you win. That's how Marino won. That's how Elway won. That's how Montana won. That's how Brady won. Good teams find ways to win. They need the ball last, and they will win it. If it's a barn burner, if it's a low-scoring game, whatever, let's have our offense with a chance to win the game with a field goal or touchdown. And the 2023 Chargers, just like the 22 Chargers, had so many opportunities to win the game at the end, and that offensive line crushed it. Was not able to hold their water, as they say. We had sacks, we had hurried throws, we had quarterback hits, and that ruined the mojo. So I'm going to go ahead and put the finger on that. And again, what guys on the offensive line are we going to hit upon? We're going to talk about that as well. But that was the gist of it, right? That was early on in the season, you saw the difficulty with what Herbert was having to go through because of bad O-line play. And that's just for pass protection. I never, with the exception of the Miami Dolphin game, which we had a great running attack. And if you remember, it was a great duo of Eckler and Josh Kelly. And they had a great run in that Miami Dolphin game. Imposing rushing attack. And the line did a great job. But after that, completely fell off the wagon, right? Eckler got hurt. Josh Kelly came in, couldn't do anything. Spiller had some chances, couldn't do anything. This was just a mess. Eckler came back after the injury after a few weeks, couldn't do anything. Rushing game did not exist in 2023 for the Chargers. Did not exist. And look, I didn't see the O-line busting holes either. These running backs were getting attacked as they tried to come out of that line, okay? So the holes weren't there. And sometimes on the positive rushes, right, we had a couple of yards here and there, but that's it. And that's just a initial thrust, right? That's a running back effort with the initial thrust of the offensive line, but there was nothing imposing, nothing intimidating. There was nothing being done where the O-line was pushing these guys and getting our running backs down the field for 2, 3, 4, 5 yards without being touched. Absolutely not. This was just a terrible rushing performance. I'm going to go back to Eckler on this one. Eckler has been a great running back for the Chargers. You can't forget, right, what this man has done. Led the league last 2 years in touchdowns. Just amazing pass receiver out of the backfield. And there's a number of fingers to point. Shame on you, Tom Telesco, for not incorporating other running backs. You tried, right? Josh Kelly, okay. Isaiah Spiller didn't work and has not worked. Bigger backs should have came in. Stronger backs should have came in. Eckler, I know pound for pound, one of the strongest guys on the team. God bless. That's great. But he's not the guy to beat him down A and B gap throughout the game, 25, 30 touches. That's not his game. That's not his game. He's a space back, right? He needs space, get the ball to him, boom, one-on-one, break some ankles, pop it out, go. And that's what he does best. You can't beat this man down the A and B gap all day. Josh Kelly's that's not his game either, right? David Montgomery would have been a great back to add here. Just a great, $4 or $5 million a year from free agency, right? That was not going to break the bank. Could you imagine we had Montgomery in here with Eckler? That would have been a great 1-2 punch. That's how you use it, right? That's how you work talent on the team. So Eckler was definitely, the man looked like he was running with a piano strapped to his back this year. We can blame it on the ankle injury if you want. I'm going to blame it on age and falling off a cliff. That's what running backs do. He's going to get picked up next year. Look, you can laugh at me all you want. He is going to get picked up next year by a quality offense. I can see a Niners team. I can see a Ravens team. I can see some Eagles. You name it. He can go anywhere and play. And he's going to play well. But they're not going to put that ball in his hands that many times either. They're going to space. A good offensive coordinator is going to space him out, and he's going to make sure we get quality touches for Eck, right? And that's how you maintain him for a couple of more years to be a great addition to a team. But he's not going to be the bell cow. And the Chargers kept trying to strap a bell cow on this kid, and it's not right. He's 29 years old this year. And you know what age does to running backs, right? It's great for quarterbacks. Even receivers even get better at times, right? With the route running skills and so forth. If they diminish any type of speed, they're so savvy on that. And quarterbacks, you name it. So many great names now to mention in their latter 30s. But when it comes to running backs, man, they fall off a cliff. And Eck is one of those guys. And unfortunately, he's going to have to move on next year. And God bless and let him go to a different team and let him do well. But this was an offensive line void issues. It was a running back void issues. And that's what really curtailed and hurt the Chargers. How about injuries? How about injuries on the offense again? How about Mike Williams going down early in the year, right, with that ACL? That was devastating, man. That was a difficult injury, and I get it. Next man up, QJ, come on up. Quentin Johnston, come on up. Josh Palmer, come on up. And it didn't work. Josh Palmer continues to get injured, right? Again, I give him a lot of credit for coming back from injuries, but he gets hurt. He gets dinged up a lot. Quentin Johnston, man, oh man. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I want to go back to the offensive line for 1 second, though. I do want to mention this. Some of the problem spots we mentioned earlier. Corey Linsley, this man has a reported heart condition. Luckily, he's going to be fine from it, but no longer can play football, is what it sounds like and what they've been reporting now. So he's going to be out of football. Once he was taken away from us on the O-line early in the year, that became a huge problem. That center position became a problem. So, it did not work. This new centers coming in with Clapp coming in and Jaime's later on coming did not work. So that's a problem spot next year. That's going to be addressed hopefully with the draft, if not free agency. I think draft's a better way to go on that. Get yourself a young center for the next 10 years. So number one, that was the issue. Slater, that's your anchor, right? Could have played better. Had a lot of, again, I don't have the penalty count, but had some issues on that left side this year, right? Zion Williamson, I'm going to tell you right now, did not like his performance this year. A lot of whiffs, not imposing in the running game, did not look good to me this year. Second year cat, he's got to get better or just replace, because that as a first round pick did not work for me. And there was nothing happening on that side. Jamari Salyer going to the right side, I think as a guard, I like him better as a tackle. I thought his play at tackle was much more defined when he played the left tackle spot last year for Slater. I thought the guard spot was okay for him, but potentially a tackle or swing tackle move is a better spot for him. Trey Pipkins, the third. Look, I like Trey, but was not imposing and had problems on his side as well. So that's a problem still. So again, the offensive line has to get adjusted. And I want to keep these guys I'm talking about. I think Trey is a great swing tackle. I think Zion could get better, obviously, but I'm not sure if he's a starter anymore. These are things you got to look at and go, okay, I know we took a first-round flyer on him, or in regards to Zion, I know we have a third-round flyer on Trey. We got to keep him as a swing. I get it. You sign him to a contract. I get there's numbers involved. They're quality people. There's only so much or so many quality big men in the world that can play this position well, right? So we were nitpicking here. So I'm not saying get rid of these guys. You have a 53-man roster, but you're always looking for improvement, right? As a player, it sucks because every year, no matter how well you play, they're going to be drafting somebody to take your spot every year. And if they're not, shame on you, general manager, whoever is going to be the new GM here. But shame on you, GM, for not doing that. You've got to be, with the exception of Herbert, right? With the exception of your franchise quarterback. And even then, you're looking at second-string quarterbacks all the time, right? Look what happened this year. 60-plus quarterbacks played in the season this year based on injuries, right? Or lack of execution. Look at Cleveland. They finally found their guy after 3-4 quarterbacks, right? With Flacco coming in and having an incredible resurgence. These are the issues. You've got to be drafting every year to potentially replace the other guy in front of you. And if you're a player and you walk on and you go, okay, I've got this spot for the next 5 years. Hey, guess what? That's not what we're doing here. Every year is really a competition. It really, really, truly is. You've got to show it every year. Every game. Okay, I'm going to switch to the defense in a second. How about Bosa? Let's talk about that in a few minutes. But anyway, just to finish this up on the offensive side, these are the problems we had. The lack of O-line play, the running backs with rushing efforts being dim, the quarterbacks Mike Williams' injury, Keenan had a magnificent year. Just carried this offense. Amazing job, Keenan Allen. You need to get restructured. You've got to stay on this team for a couple more years. Maybe a 2 or 3 year contract has to come your way. You're playing way too well, and you're too much of a leader to lose you here. Keenan has to be part of the staff next year. Mike Williams, he's got a $20 million hit, I believe, in his cap space next year. That's going to be something to look at. I know he wants to stay, and I love that fact about him. He's a team player, but he's got big monies coming up for him. 2024, we're $35 million. We, meaning the LA Chargers, man, we are $35 million over the cap, right? We don't have the cap number yet. I know it's going to increase, but look, these are some big numbers. Next year's, this 2024 year coming up, is as Mike Williams' last year. He's got a $17 million base salary, right? And he's got a roster bonus of $3 million on top of that. So he's got 20 coming up to him. His cap number is $32 million this year, right? You cut him, you're saving 20, right? You cut him, you save 20 million off the bat. I'm not saying cut, I'm saying restructure. And based on the fact this man has an ACL injury, he's coming in with that injury issue. He's got to restructure it. Do I want to do it for next 2 to 3 years? Absolutely, I can. Right? He's 30 years old. I'm happy to do it for another 2 years. So let's do that with a restructure on his side. That's what I'm looking at on that contractual issue. Bosa, I'm going to go on the defensive side. This is the man who played really well for us, got a jersey. He's the guy. I love Bosa, but it's time to finish off the Charger career with Bosa. Done. No longer can be here, unfortunately. The cap number is too big. The production's not there. The injury factor is immensely high. And I'm sure he's extremely frustrated. I know he's frustrated, right? But Joey Bosa going into season 2024, that's going to be something to look at to go ahead and cut. He has a $36 million contract or cap hit this year. That's immense, right? 36 this year, 2025 will go to 30, almost 33. So look, you cut this year, you're saving 14 million on cap savings, right? So 14 million right there. That to go along with a cutting of Mike Williams, which will save you 20. That's 35 million right there. Now, we talked about restructuring Mike, but that's a whole separate issue. But that's 35 million right there between two players. That's what you're in the red right now. So that's not a bad way to go. But Joey, great career with the Chargers, but need to move on because the availability is just not, unfortunately, not there. Furthermore, on the defense, your MVP for this Charger squad, besides Keenan Allen, is going to be Khalil Mack. Amazing year. This veteran just had one of those career years this year with the sack number that he accumulated. Age 32, right? Going in for year 2023 here. Great job. He had a little over $15 million cap hit this year. And for 2024, that cap hit is going to be just over $38 million. So yeah, that's huge, right? $38 million for that 1 year. That's not going to happen. You do a cut there, that's a $23 million savings. However, you're not going to cut Khalil Mack. I don't care about the age. He's 32, but he's got 10 seasons. And man, he's just a magnificent season. I'm restructuring for 2 more years. So that's a restructure. Let's fix that contract. Let's get it going where he's there for 24, 25, maybe even 26, but he's 32. So I'm just trying to do a 2-year restructure if I could on that. That's what the new GM is looking at to do with Khalil. He played, like I said, MVP performance all the way through, carried that defense. Derwin James, amazing player, right? And has been at age 27, is no longer. Right, is no longer. I don't care. You can hate me all you want on this, but Derwin James is not bringing the playmaking attributes for this year. At least for 2023, I didn't see it. He was more detrimental. He had a lot of unnecessary roughness hits and so forth. I didn't see any playmaking issues there. I didn't see pass breakups. I didn't see interceptions. I just saw tackles, which is great. But you need some, for that safety position, you need some sacks. You need some great defending of the ball, some great tight end defending. I didn't see it. I just see him running and tackling people at the end, and I'm not seeing a lot of pass breakups. I can get that from another guy without paying that kind of money. Because in 2023, the cap number was over $9 million. But that's not bad, right? 2024, you're looking at almost 20 million for him. He's at 19,856 this year. That's too much. I'm not paying somebody 20 million to do that kind of performance, right? He did not have a good year. There was no injuries involved or anything else. It is what it is. He's age 27, 6 seasons in, and I'm moving on, right? Unpopular enough to say, but you move on now. What I've seen so far, I'm moving on from it. I'm trading, right? And that's what you want to get done, because if you cut, you're going to lose money on that. You just can't. You're going to be in the red even more. The cap number is not going to be a saving for you. All you have is dead money because the contract is too new. So you got to try to trade this player, and I think there'll be buyers. And they'll, again, what am I looking at? Maybe a third round draft pick at this point for him is what I'm looking at. Otherwise, little detrimental. He did not bring what I thought he was going to bring to the season, and it was. It needs to get better. The Derwin I saw this year was not the playmaker that I've seen in the past, and did not change games. And that's what you've signed him up for. He's that safety to change games on you, and that was not provided this year. So Derwin, potential trade. Moving on, Eric Kendricks, not bad for 1 year. Again, wasn't a guy that made a lot of movement. Next year he's got a $9 million cap hit coming up. And if you cut him, you're saving $6 million, which is great. So these are some of the guys that I saw that really were problematic issues and stuff you have to either restructure with or just cut away with. And sometimes you have to do that. These are tough decisions. Some guys again on defense, I love Thule. Was a great rookie this year. He was great, and he's going to be much better as he continues getting the experience on that edge. So great draft pick on that end. Speaking of the draft, we have to talk about Quentin Johnston, right? So many other receivers, Zay Flowers, and those guys got picked after him. Quentin Johnston had a tough year, and especially that Green Bay Packer game where you see a potential game-winning catch where he can set up a field goal or potentially a touchdown. At Green Bay, wide open, beautiful over-the-shoulder throw, and he literally just dropped that ball. He had drops throughout the year, as you saw. And that's a huge problem. But I've seen this before. Before you throw him away and say he was a wasted draft pick, he sucks, you name it, waste, whatever. Hold on. I've seen enough tape on this guy to know that, number one, he's a playmaker. And that's what you want. Yeah, but you got to get consistent hands on this guy. You can develop that. Right, I've seen receivers in the past. I'm not going to throw out names because I don't want to compare them to these big-time names, but I've seen receivers in the past that didn't perform well with their hands. And look, he's a body catcher, no doubt about it. You see it, right? You see it. I saw it in training camp, right? He's not a smooth hand catcher. Doesn't mean you cannot become one. Especially the athlete that you are, the talent that you are, the craftsman that you are in your game. The great coaching that comes with it, you can develop better catching skills. Absolutely, you can. And hard things are route running and speed. Those are just more difficult to kind of work with. Route running is also experience, but the speed factor, the playability factor, the playmaker abilities that you possess, that's something that's inert, and it's not something you can really teach. He's got I still believe he's got those skills to become that guy. Okay, very lackluster this year, and really was a problem. But now it's on him, right? Now it's on these new coaches coming in, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But it's up to these new coaches coming in to put him in a best situation for him to succeed in slot, as an X, as a Y. Maybe the short passes initially to get his confidence up, and then let's work with this guy for a full off season, and let's make him better. Because that's what you got to do. And you can't throw this guy away. You can't say he's a bust. You can if you want. I'm not going to do it. I personally won't do it because I know it takes time to develop receivers. Before the whole Jamar Chase and all these new receivers coming in and exploding off the bat, being amazing receivers off the bat, Pro Bowl guys. I remember a time in the 80s and 90s, folks. I'm telling you, I'm an old guy. I remember the time when receivers came in and they did not look good the first couple of years, right? It's one of the most difficult positions to play in the NFL, believe it or not. It's one of the more difficult positions to play for them. And I think the comfort factor, even more importantly, the confidence factor is such a crucial component of it, right? And I think that's what he needs. And he also needs to work on his hands, right? Let's get that going as well. Let's not shroud that. He's got to work on it. So these are some of the issues we are talking about with players. Man, this was rough. This 5-win season was rough. In a season where we thought this team was built to go, at least to the divisional play, right? Divisional play, and maybe most probably a championship type play. This was the year, and it just completely imploded, and we saw it unfortunately on national TV against that, as we talked about earlier, against that Raider game, and that just solidified Brandon Staley's career as a head coach. I don't think he'll ever get one again. Not this kind of, not this kind of fashion. This was a complete breakdown. This was his defense. That did not work and went backwards. Again, there's some certain games I watched and I said, okay, the defense playing the Baltimore Raven game, just to bring it back. That was a great defensive performance, I thought, against Lamar and company, right? But those are going to be just swept away now because of so many lackluster Kansas City Chiefs just deploying on them and just exploding on them for the first half. Remember the first game they had against them, and just the Chiefs, Mahomes just tore it up. And that was pretty bad. Tua against the Miami game just tore him up. There was just so many bad performances. Dak Prescott against the Dallas game, the Detroit Lion game. There were so many bad performances that the Staley's signature was all over. So head coaching job, I think he's done with. As a defensive coordinator, probably somewhere down the line, I'm sure, like maybe even next year, once the stink of the whole Charger fiasco is out of his hair. Otherwise, he'll go to college. But hey, this was the Staley issue. The bigger problems were the fourth downs. And I'm not one of these guys who say, oh, he should have never went for it on fourth downs. I love his aggressiveness, right? I do like the aggressiveness, but I hated the over-aggressiveness and the non-calls. You should have not gone for it on certain fourth downs. There's times where you just take a field goal, right? And I'm going to go back to that Kansas City game the year prior, back in 22. There was a home game, and all you had to do is kick a number of field goals because they weren't giving you those touchdowns, and you would have won that game, right? These are things you got to do. And the fact of going on fourth downs in certain situations continually was a problem. And go back to this year, the beginning of this year, he actually wasn't even going for it on fourth downs where he should have, right? There were games that early on that they're across the 50-yard line and it was a 4th and 1 and what have you. I'm like, okay, now you've got it. Your momentum is good. Your offense is cruising. Let's go ahead and do it because it's not about analytics, man. If you're just looking at analytics, it's not going to work. And that's why coaches get burned because you got to also see how your offense is doing and what they're doing on defense and what the climate is and what's going on in there and what did you just have a good second and third down, or are you just getting bombarded here and you just want to get out of here with a field goal or a punt? So these are the difficult decisions, and he did not make them well. And I think that really cost him and really pigeonholed him as being that riverboat gambler on every fourth down. It really wasn't the case, but it became that guy, I think now it's Dan Campbell, quite honestly, who keeps going for on these fourth downs. But before that, it was all Brandon Staley, and he just made so many bad decisions at times on fourth down, and that kind of stunk with him a little bit, and that's really hurt him. And maybe he got a little bit timid to go for it on certain fourth downs, and then he went for some other ones where he's like, no, man, just kick the field goal. You got Cameron Dicker here, who was a great kicker, and we saw that the last 5 games, how much he was deployed that way. It was just such a great kicker. Use it. Get the points. And that really hurt the Chargers, I thought, too, in these close games. I thought lack of getting some good field goals in there, unfortunately. So Brandon Staley is done. Tom Telesco, man. We talked about the draft last few years. Hit and miss. Tom Telesco is not a bad drafter at all. Had some really good hits. Had some bad misses as well. We've talked about. But, one thing that really bothered me was the free agency pickups. I thought free agency-wise, we didn't do enough, with the exception of this year where, they were going after the Patriots corner, right? We got that big name in here, and we got Mr. Interception here. We got the monies coming in and all that little overspent. I thought the free agency part was a little lackluster. I thought keeping guys were lackluster. There's some guys that played really well. Oche played really well a couple of years ago, and he got sent out to Seattle. Right, he got picked up there. That should have been a kept. Jenkins back then, our free safety, Rashawn Jenkins should have been kept. There's so many different ones we can go back to. And, it happens, right? It's salary cap issues and it's numbers. And I just thought the free agency market was kind of something that could have been worked out a little bit better. In-season trades, I thought, could have been handled a little bit better as well. Or in-season acquisitions when our defense last year was just crumbling. D-line was crumbling. So many issues, right? Never got addressed. And I'm not going to buy it that the guys didn't want to come and play here and we're going to go somewhere else. You had opportunities, man, and it just did not occur. So these are things that really kind of hurt Telesco. I think it's a really good time that this change is happening. So obviously Telesco and Staley have been removed, right? Have been terminated, fired, done. This had to happen, including Telesco. 10 years. He's had 3 coaches, right? Mike McCoy, right? Anthony Lynn, and of course Brandon Staley. Didn't work out, and now you're looking at a potentially a brand new startup, and this is what you need to do as a Charger organization. So the last segment here, we're going to discuss this right now for a few minutes, and how we're going to fix this, because the name of the game is to win a Super Bowl, absolutely, but you can't win one if the foundation does not have strength and is not built upon that core. So let's go back and let's see how we're going to get this done. Well, it happens a number of ways. The draft, right? Free agency, right? And great coaching. This is something you got to work with. So this is the time. This is the time for the Chargers to go back and go, okay, what do we need to get back on the roadmap here? Because look, you've moved to LA. You don't have the greatest fan base, right? Between the Rams and Chargers playing in LA, along with all the different fan base that comes to games. I go to the home games every week, right? Every home game. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's a 50-50 split at best. So you truly, as a Charger fan or as a Charger player, you do not have a home field to work within. So that's one of the issues you got to work with here as an owner, is you need to establish this winning culture and the right environment for your team. We don't have that. The LA Chargers do not have that set up yet. And that's something that this new coaching staff and a GM have to establish, right? So it's crucial for the Chargers to select the next coach as the guy that's going to make this work. And to what I say make this work is to build that culture, to build a stadium filled with the fan base. And how do you get that? Yeah, you get a lot of bandwagoners jumping in if you're winning, and that's what you got to do. You got to win games, right? You got to have the right type of players coming in here to win these games, and that's going to be crucial. So coaching is key. Right. So what are they going to go after? Like the old days, it was always, let's get a GM first. And once the GM is done, we're going to go ahead and get our head coach. But I think in this day and age, that might be changing. Right. And I know it sounds counterproductive, but if you're going to go after somebody like a Jim Harbaugh, which obviously the Chargers are, this is going to be a pretty huge endeavor. And you don't need a GM to get Harbaugh. You need Harbaugh. Right. That's the number one guy. You get that, and then you get your GM that can work with him. That's crucial. But number one is solidifying that right head coach. So that's the process right now. Jim Harbaugh right now will be the best fit, in my opinion, for this Charger organization. Why? He's going to bring in credibility. He's going to bring that name that captures credibility. He's going to bring in the staff that's been successful at University of San Diego, small school it is. It was successful in Stanford, working with Andrew Luck. It's successful in Michigan with their recently crowned championship. So this is what you get with Jim Harbaugh, right? You're going to get a credible, strong coach that's going to come in, that has the experience, and can bring in a staff that can compete right now. Right now. Day one. You're a competitor for the playoffs and for a championship. And that's what you need. He's exceptional with quarterbacks. And of course, we talked about Stanford with Andrew Luck. In San Francisco when he had Kaepernick, it was his best years. Like him or not, it was his best years with Harbaugh. After that, he kind of fell off. Those are crucial. So he has a great success with quarterbacks. Why? Because he was a quarterback, right? He was a very good quarterback. He was Mr. Comeback, right? So that's great. But the man knows how to coach. It's in his bloodlines, his father, his brother. And I'm not trying to get too philosophical with this. I'm just trying to tell you, this is the best coach to get. Now, it might not work. Of course, it might not work. He might be here for a couple of years and it might not work. But you have to attempt to get guys like this. Because the last 3 coaches I mentioned, good guys, good coordinators, what have you, we're not guys that can coach this team. We're not successful being a head coach. None of them are head coaches now. You have to get a credible coach. The Chargers have to overspend and get a coach like a Jim Harbaugh. It's a necessity because without it, you are a laughingstock in this NFL right now. You're in the basement dweller. You're being called a verb of chargering, right? And I know it pisses off fans, pisses me off. The Chargers fans expect, unfortunately now, losses at end of close games instead of wins. The media is just looking for it to happen so they can continue the narrative of charging. We've seen it way too many times. This team has to go over the hump, and it can. The Chargers organization, the ownership have to put in the money to do it. And I don't care what you've heard. Dean Spanos does spend money. The whole thing about getting rid of a coach or the owner that's fine and dandy, right? Worked for the Clippers. Absolutely. Great guy to have as an owner, right? But if, Spanos just spent $50 million plus on Herbie, right? He signed him. He's spending over $500 million on that. So yeah, he's going to spend money, but that also means you're going to spend money on coaching now. You're not going to get Harbaugh if you're not paying $15 or $20 million a year. That's what it's going to cost you, because a contract right now on the table, as we hear it from Michigan, is for just under $13 million a year for him for the next 10 years, right? About $125 million is what we're looking at. So somewhere between $120 and $130 is what we're thinking about what's going to happen if it's really a good rumor. And based on what coaches are getting paid right now, that's what you're looking at. He's got to get a contract offer for at least 5 years at maybe 15 or 17 a year, maybe even 20 a year. So I expect a 5-year, $80 million contract for sure. That's the number. You can't go less than that. He's not going to take that because it's a hot commodity. There's 8 open markets as of now. There's 8 open markets right now in the National Football League that need a coach. Correction, make that 7. The Patriots just picked up their guy today. So there's 7 markets that are open, ready, and willing. Now, with Harbaugh comes other issues, right? He's not the easiest guy to handle, not the easiest guy to work with for the GM. He's going to have his own set of ideologies to come in with. He's got to work with management and ownership. And luckily, he knows the Spanoses, right? He was here 99 and 2000 as a quarterback. That's a positive. The rumor circuit is with ESPN. ESPN had mentioned that he was talking about how he loves Herbert, and if he ever came back to the NFL, he'd love to work with Herbert. So that's a great positive. Okay, it's LA. It's a big market. I'm not sure if that makes a big deal for him or not, but it's a big market, right? Okay, so that you have that. You have great weather. This is good for potential free agents coming down, right? It's going to turn on a number of free agents coming in. It might turn off some. But I think what you bring with the draft class will be big, because for the last 4, 5, 6 years, he's been in the college football ranks and he knows the young guys. So at least for the first few years, you got some good intel from your scouting department, right? In regards to the young guys coming out, because you've seen them personally. It's very hard as a head coach to be here for 4, 5, 6 years as an NFL head coach and have a good pulse of the college game, because all you're really counting is your scouts telling you about it, right? Maybe you've gone to a few and check out a guy here and there, but it's usually your scouting team that does that. But with Harbaugh, he's seen it firsthand. So I think for the first couple of years, at least for the first 2 years, he's got a good pulse of it, which is great. And I think you'll see defense get improved immediately if Harbaugh comes in. I'm saying I'm pretty much saying an immediate defensive effort will be there. I think you're seeing some new names coming in as well. I think you'll automatically get a running game. You'll add up to that offensive line. He's going to build it. I think he will build it like a traditional team. Strong running game, strong, fast, attacking defense. And man, you got Herbie. He's going to give you weapons, and he's not scared to shoot it out. Okay, so he's the guy. He's the guy you got to shoot for. If you don't get it, hey, there's other guys you got to work with. There's coordinators we're talking about here, obviously. Proven coordinators out there. There's proven other head coaches. I could see a Pete Carroll coming in here. I know he's an older gentleman, but I think Pete Carroll has the same kind of qualities in the NFL, and I think he has a great sense of bringing guys together and has a great foundational piece. I love his draft classes. I think he has a good pulse with the college teams out there, and he knows how to bring young guys in and play them right away. He's not scared of that. And with Pete Carroll, you're going to get a strong defense, you're going to get a good running game, and you're going to get explosive offense. So again, and he's really good with quarterbacks. Look how well he did with Russell Wilson. So there's a lot of positives to be said for those two guys. I know Bill Belichick is out there. I don't think he's the right guy for the Chargers. Amazing coach, but I just don't think that's the right team here for him. I don't think he can really provide that offensive effort that we come and expect with Herbert. So again, I'm not a big fan of it. I think he'll do better off in other places. But these are my guys I'm kind of thinking about. But again, it's Harbaugh or bust right now, and that's okay. If it doesn't happen with Harbaugh, it's not the end of the world. There's other coordinators out there that could potentially still bring you some really good success. And again, it's a gamble, right, on all these guys. These young coordinators coming in, man, they're, like a Ben Johnson, right, the big name there. You don't know how they're going to do. You don't know how they translate as a head coach and how much of the offensive play calling or defensive play calling they're going to hold on to. So that's another portion of it. But the Chargers have to do it. They've got to take the big gamble. That my time is coming up. It looks like we had you guys for a long time today. Hey, there's a lot more to break down. We got Combine coming up. As soon as we get word on the new coaching hire, we're going to be on air. We're going to get that podcast out to you. Otherwise, please follow us on Instagram at extremevoltage_podcast. I want to thank our producer across the glass for making us sound good today. Of course, that's Tyrell Mad Dog Wiggins. And appreciate the music by Kevin MacLeod for Strength of the Titans and the Ice Giants. Find Kevin at filmmusic.io. We'll catch you soon. My name is D. Melkonian. Bolt up. Catch you later.